Intel shares closed up about 0.5%, slightly down and off to hours. The company has been working on some interesting developments for the future. Let's get the details with Phil.
Michelle, thank you. Intel Corporation has someone they call a futurist that's on staff whose main job is to focus on what retail trends will be 20 years from now. Futurist Brian David Johnson says shopping and digital innovations will go hand in hand.
One of the things that I noticed really early on was that what it feels like, and that's really what I model, what will it feel like to be a human and live 10, 15, 20 years in the future? What it feels like to shop really hasn't changed that much. And that if you look back to the Victorian times or even back to Rome, how people shopped and what it felt like to shop hasn't changed that much, the experience of shopping. But what has changed is the technology and the devices and the objects. And you can look at things, really simple things like the light bulb or the gas light or something like the price gun, things that have made changes that now we take for granted, but for then has really changed that experience, made it more efficient, made it more pleasurable, given us, even with the light bulb, the ability to shop at night. And so when we were looking out to the future, we started looking at really specific objects that we could say, okay, this will help take that next step. This will transform what it will feel like to shop in the future.
I remember when online shopping first took off, and a lot of experts say this was the death of places like Walmart. This would be the death of all the small business owners down the street selling gadgets and these things. And of course, we now know that's not true. What do you think the next 10 years is going to bring in terms of the retail environment?
Well, I think we always have to remember that people love to shop, that shopping is kind of even a form of self-expression and social interaction. We like to shop, we like to see things physically, we like to shop with our friends, but I also think we have to understand that there's lots of different types of shopping, right? There's going out with your friends or your family and having an experience, and it's kind of like entertainment. But then there's also things like shopping for the humble egg, right? So that there's different types of shopping, and we need to comprehend the complexity and the subtleties of how people will shop. And so for me, in looking at that, I sort of looked at a couple different objects and said, well, what will happen as things like holograms come up? That when you go into a store and you have the ability to act and interact with an object that may not actually be in that store, that might be halfway around the world. And also for the retailer means that that piece of clothing, that piece of electronics actually doesn't have to be in the back stock room, that you can walk in and act and interact with something, buy it, not even have to take it home, but then when you get home, it'll be waiting for you. So I think you could look at
Let me ask you, Brian, about sort of some gadgets that are already out there that some would say is going to be part of the future. One is this whole Google Glass thing where you basically wear it and you can sort of, it's your hologram issue. And the other one is this 3D printing that has a lot of people abuzz because I guess we don't have to go to the store anymore to buy stuff. We can just be at home and just print it out ourselves. Either of those two, do you think they're going to be a hit?
Well, when I look at things like Google Glass and those sort of augmented reality, I always ask, how will it make people's lives better? The thing that's really interesting about augmented reality is that it's a way to fuse the physical world with the digital world and do that overlay. And I think it's really in the application of that, when is it a good idea to bring the digital world into the physical world? And I think that's where you can start to see, well, if it's going to be successful and how will it actually make people's lives better? What will that do? For me, these things are simply a screen. They're a screen and a way in which we act and interact with our social networks and the way that we communicate and get information. And with 3D printing, what I'm excited about with that is not so much the 3D printing as it is today. As you've seen most 3D printers, it's additive printing and it's in a box and you have the print head goes back and forth. What I'm really excited about is when 3D printing breaks out of that box and you have 3D printing on a massive scale.